Alignment.
All right, we are live on Facebook.
Hello, Facebook. We're back in the studio this week. We were at home last week, but we're back here this week, side by side, mostly healthy.
Back in the saddle.
Yeah.
Feeling much better. Thank you for your viewer concern from the notes that I got.
Did you?
I got one.
That's enough. That's all you needed. People are approaching me with their continuing fear and panic about the election.
Yeah?
I assure them everything will be okay. We'll see. Because I have a reputation to maintain.
I do not intend to go to the hospital with chest pains no matter what happens.
Good.
Like 2016.
Yeah.
I'm not, I shall be enormously unhappy, but not panicked.
And we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm, and I'm in the studio.
Yes, you are. And I'm Ann Northrop, and I am too. And let's see, should we adjust our, come towards me a little.
All right.
There we go. I think that's good.
We're good?
Yeah.
And I hope you're all going to have a very happy National Coming Out Day, October 11th. Figure out a new way to come out.
I should out a couple of our helpers I forgot to mention last week. We are tremendously grateful for the help we get from various community members for various things, and most particularly for our help from a couple of stellar photographers, one a great pro and the other a great amateur. Donna Cito has been a long-time professional photographer in the community and beyond, and she provided some of the great photos we had last week from the demonstration at the Uganda mission against their Don't Say Gay law, and we're very grateful to her for those. And then Jackie Rudin was at an event I was at with Tammy Baldwin, a sort of fundraiser, and took a picture of us that we showed last week, and we didn't credit Jackie either. So thank you to Donna, thank you to Jackie for your generosity and help over many years.
But more to the point, how's that Tammy doing?
Well, you know,
Wisconsin Senate race against a guy from California.
They claim it's a toss-up at this point, which is discouraging because he has all the money in the world and is pouring it into an onslaught of ads. But I have faith in Tammy, and particularly after hearing her at that event, she was so strong in the way she spoke. She was very impressive, and I'm hoping that. And, you know, Kamala keeps going to Wisconsin because they're worried about that. So I hope that will help Tammy, too.
Yeah. Okay. And that brings us to our top headline, which is that the Republicans are really amping up their anti-trans ads against the Democrats from Trump on down.
And I'm sorry to say that I think the Supreme Court is back in session with more basic rights on their chopping block. And a quick decision that further restricts access to reproductive health care. They were barely out of the gates before they did that.
We've told you about that anti-LGBTQ Republican North Carolina state school superintendent nominee who wants Obama and Biden executed and yet is running even in the polls in North Carolina.
Why has this become the most obnoxious post in American politics between Ryan Walters in Oklahoma and this
because
guy?
It's part of the Republican plan to destroy public education. That's why.
Yeah.
And they think it's a winning issue.
And yes, they do. All right. Well, you'll never guess what, speaking of Oklahoma, what Bibles have been ordered in Oklahoma classrooms.
Toyota says, let's go places, and their latest move may make you want to go to a different brand.
Christopher Chone, artist, interior decorator, designer, and brother to Madonna, and author of a book about her, has died.
We have 3 lovely LGBTQ sports stories to tell you, albeit from Europe, not the USA.
And the European Union top court now requires all EU member states to recognize gender changes.
We mourn the loss of veteran AIDS activist Nanette Kaza of ACT UP.
What a star she was. Cola Scola, star of Oh Mary, now on Broadway, has made a Time Magazine 100 list.
And I'm going to have 2 Broadway reviews, Yellow Face on the Hills of California on Broadway, and we're going to talk about Emilia Perez, the movie that's coming to Netflix soon.
Theaters first, then Netflix.
Right.
Did I like it more than you?
I liked it a lot.
I liked it a lot,
So
too.
there you go. You don't have to watch it till the end.
Yeah.
You can turn the show
Tune
off.
out.
So yes, right. Finally, the New York Times discovered that the way Republicans are trying to win this year is by running anti-trans ads in Senate races, in swing congressional districts. And of course, Trump is doing it all the time. And this is their basic line is they're out to destroy girls' sports. And of course, Trump is running an ad with Kamala.
With a drag queen.
Patty Gonya. And Patty is considering a legal action against the Trump campaign for using her image. But she already raised $15,000 off this for trans health care.
Well, that's not anywhere near what the Republicans are spending on these ads, which is now so big that it hit the front page of the New York Times this week, above the fold.
And Patty Gonya is not with Kamala there. Put the picture back up because she's a drag queen. It's because she's a climate activist. And what could be more timely given what we're living through in this country, especially in Florida?
Well, it's an interesting case study. We tend to get them every 4 years, if not more often. The Republicans, I would argue, in 2004, George Bush got reelected with a lot of help from the anti-same-sex marriage referenda on ballots in many states.
That was the strategy.
Yeah. And lately they have decided trans rights are what they're going after. And they did not succeed with that 2 years ago in the midterms.
Right.
They didn't do very well.
They spent an awful lot of money. I mean, they're spending $65 million on TV ads, stoking fears of trans girls and trans sports.
And their tagline is against Kamala is, she's for they, them, he's for you.
Right.
I have to admit that's clever, but I don't know that it will get them anywhere.
But as Kamala said on 60 Minutes, in which she was not joined by Donald Trump, he never talks about you, always about him.
That's right. That ad is probably the only instance of him making any reference to you. All right. Well, he does have his own wacky supporter, the richest man in the world, as he's often called. Elon Musk showed up when Trump went back to Butler, Pennsylvania this weekend.
Now look at this picture at the top there, because Trump has really given him the side eye for upstaging him.
Yes. Elon Musk was literally bouncing up and down on the stage.
Cavorting.
I think there's something awry about him.
Well, so Musk, he's been using X, which used to be Twitter, to spread disinformation about FEMA and Hurricane Helene. Trump is considering Musk for a cabinet appointment, and Musk says he will accept. Of course, and it's going to be called the Department of Government Efficiency. This from the man who ran X into the ground.
Who's lost a significant portion of his riches by his bad.
When you have all the money in the world, and when we live in a society where we let these people keep billions and billions, and this guy maybe possibly eventually $1 trillion, this is what's going to happen to your government.
It's terrible. And by the way,
we the people don't have to do this. Now, Kamala says, we're going to make the rich pay the fair share. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, good luck with that. It hasn't worked yet. But
by the way, the Human Rights Campaign is spending 7 figures on an ad campaign in Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. all kinds of ads, digital, streaming, display ads and everything.
Good.
To remind people who's better on LGBTQ rights.
Well, and also a lot of this comes down to who does have more ads. It's a volume thing. I think the more people see, you don't agree with that. I think that volume makes a big difference.
I live in a place where we don't see too many ads. We see some local congressional race ads.
Right. But I think in these states that are inundated with them, when you see thousands of ads as opposed to maybe someone else's hundreds, that makes an impact, no matter what they say. People don't listen to the details. They just have the affect or the effect of having that thrown at them. And one of, we talk about how Trump does nothing but lie all day. And one of his latest lies is schools are teaching how to be trans, not math, not reading. They're just teaching kids how to be trans.
Is our children learning? Well, here's another one. 17 porn actors have launched a $100,000 ad campaign on porn sites in swing states, warning that Project 2025 would ban pornography, erotic films, and imprison people that produce it. The ads will run in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. They think this might help Harris with younger men.
Younger men? Don't all men look at porn online?
Here's the statistic. Men 18 to 29, 44% have watched porn in the last month. Men 30 to 49, 57%. So maybe
older.
Maybe
just reported that the middle-aged cohort watches
younger.
more than younger.
Wait a minute. At our age, 57 is younger. 49 is younger.
Yes, but I want to hear the statistics for older than 57.
Oh.
But the people in their 40s and 50s evidently watch more than the younger.
Well, we hope that people will be responsive to the hands off my porn campaign.
So to speak.
It's cute.
All right. Should we wait a second? Let me just say.
Should we go to the Supreme Court?
Yes. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else we should get to before that. No, so the Supreme Court, first Monday in October, comes back into session.
There's the picture of the wrecking crew, John Roberts and company.
Amy Coney Barrett, Clarence Thomas,
Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Alito.
What a crowd.
So they're ready to do everything possible to return Trump to power if there are election disputes to keep him out of prison. But on the docket, now, first of all, they've already heard a case about ghost guns. We weren't optimistic about that, but it looks like they're not going to allow ghost guns. The Biden administration is fighting them.
They have to throw us a bone every once in a while.
But they're taking up the case of an Ohio woman who says she was discriminated against for not being LGBTQ at the State Department of Youth Services in Ohio.
She'd worked there for 20 years. She was demoted. I don't think she was fired. She transferred somewhere.
She didn't get the advancement that the gays got.
And the gays got a couple of jobs that she wanted. So she is suing the Ohio Department of Youth Services for sex discrimination.
Well, I mean, it is, if she was discriminated against on that basis, it is sexual orientation discrimination. It does happen.
But she's not suing for sexual orientation discrimination. She is suing for sex discrimination because she's trying to throw Bostock into this, and she's trying to claim that this is sex discrimination against her as a woman, and she's not getting very far with that.
Well, because there is a thing actually in law that says if you're part of a majority group, it's harder to prove.
Also, there is no law against sexual orientation discrimination in Ohio.
But there is Bostock, which does ban sexual orientation discrimination.
Sort of.
So the Tennessee ban on gender-affirming care for minors is on the docket, and Tennessee is relying on the Dobbs decision that allowed the states to ban abortion. That's their basis of this case.
It's very strange. They say, and this is banning care for trans youth, and in Georgia, banning care for employees of corporations. And yes, wait a minute, let me get this.
Get it straight.
So to speak. All right. Well, I didn't write that down. I had it. Now I've lost
I'll go
it.
to another one.
Okay.
There's a challenge to Ken Paxton's requirement for age verification if 1/3 of the content of a website is harmful, quote unquote, harmful to minors and requires health warnings on porn sites.
Yes.
And there's going to be a likely challenge to the abortion pill again. They're revving that up.
And with the case from Tennessee and from Georgia, I think the Missouri case is going to get up there. The Missouri just ended a trial on their very restrictive no trans care for minors. And the state called expert witnesses that were doctors who have never treated trans patients. And yet, because Missouri is a very conservative place, there is fear that the judge will rule for them.
More on Missouri a little later. Now, we know that the Supreme Court upheld the right of the right-wing web designer, Lori Smith, we have a picture of her, the right to discriminate against same-sex couples, even though she didn't do wedding websites. And she's going to be paid $1.5 million by Colorado for her legal fees to the legal anti-LGBTQ hate group, Alliance Defending Freedom. Her case was riddled with lies, including that a gay man who asked her to design such a site, he turned out to be straight, married to a woman, and lived in California and never heard of her.
Also in Colorado, the Colorado Supreme Court has dismissed a lawsuit against Jack Phillips. He's the baker who refused to make a cake for a trans cake, just the colors, the pink and blue and white. And they've dismissed the case against him on procedural grounds. They didn't reach the question of whether he had free.
They said the woman that was suing him didn't pursue all her options before she came to this court.
Exactly.
Georgia's Supreme Court reinstated a state law that prohibits abortions after 6 weeks. A Fulton County judge had found that it violated the state's constitution, the power of a woman to control her own body. And he had allowed abortions to go up to 22 weeks. So no more. Tough times in the U.S. Southeast, beyond the hurricane. Florida has a 6-week ban too, unless you, the voters in Florida, and I know you have other things on your mind right now, overturn that ban at the ballot box. 60% of you.
Oh, I got the Dobbs, or at least another Dobbs reference. In Missouri, they have an abortion initiative on the ballot where they have a restrictive abortion law, and the initiative would liberalize that. And Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri and Monster, is out campaigning against the initiative. And he is arguing that the abortion initiative would mandate trans care. This is his way of arguing against it. And he ties this to the Dobbs decision about reproductive freedom. It's screwy.
It has nothing whatever to do with it, but that's the way they roll these days.
It's like there was an old skit or something that just had people throwing in words, irrelevant words in the midst of it. And that's what they're doing with trans people these days.
Okay. All right, let's go to
North Carolina.
Well, the self-described black Nazi Mark Robinson will lose the governorship to Democrat Josh Stein. Kamala Harris has an even chance to win the state, but also with an even chance to be the state's superintendent of public instruction is far-right conspiracy theorist Michelle Maro, who believes that child traffickers are torturing and killing children to harvest their blood for an anti-aging elixir. And among those demon-possessed people is actor Jim Carrey. Maro,
because he made a movie of
I have no idea. Maro says that the plus, an LGBTQ plus, includes pedophilia, and she's called for the executions of Obama, Biden, and Bill Gates.
Wouldn't you vote for her as your state school superintendent?
She's called for abolishing the State Board of Education and rejecting federal education funds. It's shocking, but what isn't these days?
Well, she's running against a guy named Mo Green, who has done a lot more fundraising than she has. But the question is, will the hurricanes have any effect on this? Western North Carolina has been devastated by Hurricane Helene, And how is that going to affect
The
all of
lovely
this?
city of Asheville.
Yeah. So will people not be able to vote, or will this affect who they vote for? The Trump people are all out blaming the federal government for not supplying enough help, even though all the local officials are saying, yes, they are. Please shut up. Will that get into people's heads, and will they not vote for the Democrats because of that? It's scary.
We have an update on gay porn star Seth Rose. Put a picture of him up there. There he is as Seth Rose. His name in real life is Corey DeAngelis. There he is with Vivek Ramaswamy, who ran for president in the Republicans. So he runs this right-wing anti-LGBTQ parents' rights stuff, and he now says, after he was exposed for being on Gay Hoopla, that I've made mistakes in my life. I was a victim of poor decisions and poor influences. I'm using this as an opportunity to grow, and says the experience fires me to save young people from being put in the same position I was put in. Betsy DeVos's group has gotten rid of him. He is a contributor to Project 2025, which will be the blueprint for Trump's second term.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been cited by Texas Governor Greg Abbott and convicted felon Donald Trump for his work against the woke gay agenda.
Well, speaking of a woke agenda, Ryan Walters, who we have taken to referring to weekly on this program, the state superintendent of schools in Oklahoma. You may have been reading about this because it's actually made national news that he first mandated that all schools teach the Bible as part of their regular curriculum. Well, now he has put out an RFP, a request for proposals, for purchasing 55,000 Bibles.
For $3 million.
3.3.
Yes, I know.
For 49,000 kids, 55,000 Bibles. But here's what he says. It must be the King James Version. It must include the United States Constitution, the Pledge of Allegiance, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, which, of course, we all find in our Bibles.
And must be bound in leather.
Or leather-like material.
And there's only one Bible that seems to fit this
description. There are two.
All right.
The first one is the Lee Greenwood Donald Trump endorsed Bible, selling for $60, $59.99 perhaps.
It's called God Bless the USA.
Yeah. And the other one is a Donald Trump endorsed Bible. So Donald's getting a cut no matter what. Now, people, luckily, the national news has caught on to this and is going around and asking people, aren't there cheaper Bibles available? And do they have to? Aren't all of these?
A, you can get one for $2.99. B, it's online for free.
As are all those other documents. So really,
what's the point in our digital age?
The point is to make money for Trump.
He wants to be Secretary of Education, and Trump is seriously considering him, folks. If you're not scared by that,
please go tell your neighbors, because much as we think everybody does know these things, the fact is they don't.
That's why we're here. And by the way, HRC, just throwing this in here, reports that 90% of parents are supportive of their child's trans identity.
I took a look at the methodology of that survey and I was not impressed.
Well, okay, just undercut me.
No, I'm not undercutting you. I'm undercutting HRC. Nice, fine, but I think they need a little broader.
Well, they're undercutting
survey.
That gay teacher out on Long Island, Michael Califano.
Yeah.
He was fired from a parish grade school, Maria Regina in Seaford, Long Island, when an anonymous person sent the school pictures of him kissing his boyfriend on the boyfriend's Facebook page. So he's got a civil rights suit against the Diocese of Rockville Center and the school. But the interesting development this week is they're not objecting. They tried to have the case dismissed and they're withdrawing that. They're saying, go ahead, bring the case. We're going to win. I guess that's the thinking. When he was fired, 100 parents, staff, students all demonstrated at the diocese in his favor.
Well, the diocese thinks they're going to win because they think they have the ministerial exception to hire or fire anyone they want, and they have the religious freedom to.
And he's saying, I was never out in the classroom. My own Facebook page is private.
Yeah.
You know, somebody does this, and you know, all of a sudden, you're on my case,
so to speak. Well, someone else who could use a little more privacy or not is P. Diddy or Puff Daddy or whatever we're calling him these days. We know that he has been the target of hundreds of allegations of sexual abuse.
now going on thousands.
Trafficking of kids,
Here's the thing.
assaulting
Why has it
9-year-olds.
taken so long for anybody to come forward? 12,000 calls to the hotline. We have the picture of when they posted
Why
this.
did Donald Trump get elected? Celebrity culture in the United States.
Anyway, 25 cases have been filed for minors. The abuse occurred at album release parties, New Year's Eve, 4th of July, a puppy party, whatever that is, and an all-white party, all-white clothing, from 1991 to 2004. And they say the names of those complicit will shock us, these lawyers say.
We're pretty shocked already. All right.
New York City schools, by the way, instituted an anti-hate hotline where students, families, and staff can report incidences of hate, harassment, and discrimination. They announced it in response to the rise in anti-Semitic incidents, but it applies to all bias, Islamophobia, etc., anti-gay. So they've got a number, 718-935-2889, and it supplements reporting these things by email or online.
Okay, a couple of other education stories. In Pennsylvania, in the southwest Harrisburg area, a right-wing school board decided the way to deal with trans students and bathroom use was to divide up all the bathrooms. This one, you can go to that one, you can go to that.
Everybody gets their own?
And we're putting a window in the wall of the trans designated bathroom so people can look in and make sure there's no hanky-panky going on in there. A window in the wall.
Sounds rather perverse.
Oh my God. So people didn't like that and they got it stopped.
Okay.
Yeah. And also in educational news, wait, I just had it.
Women's volleyball.
Go ahead, do
the
that.
Fourth University has forfeited its match versus San Jose University over the gender identity of one of the team's players. So the Utah State University joined University of Wyoming, Boise State, and Southern Utah in forfeiting over the last 3 weeks, though none of the schools explained their decision or replied to the press.
Nor is the player self-described trans or identified that way. The California LGBTQ rights group put out a statement saying this has nothing to do with gender identity. It has to do with politics.
But a San Jose student is suing the NCAA over trans inclusion with 12 other women athletes. And the woman in question has played on girls and women's teams since high school.
And in the state of Utah, the right wing wants... Utah has been banning particular books in libraries, school libraries and schools. Now they want to prosecute people who put any of those banned books in the little free libraries that people have outside their houses.
They look like birdhouses almost.
Yeah, on the street. Have nothing to do with the state, not in schools, not in government libraries. They're just little private.
Don't they know what's on TV and on the internets?
They don't care. It's all politics, as Equality California said. It's all about finding a scapegoat.
Well, at least the Northampton City Council passed a resolution making Northampton a sanctuary city for transgender and gender diverse people. It calls on the city never to use city resources or city property to detain people who are seeking or providing gender affirming care, nor to provide info to out-of-state agencies that seek to make trans people seeking care fugitives.
The only problem is it is a resolution. It's not a law or rule of any kind, but it's in Northampton. It's expected to have a lot of power.
Okay.
And sorry to see that in Colorado, the only lesbian bar has closed, Blush and Blue.
Yeah.
There it is. But I think there are other LGBTQ bars opening in Colorado.
In Queens, New York, now this is 14 years after the murder of trans woman Amanda Gonzalez Andujar, a Manhattan man, there on the right, Rashim Everett, excuse me, left. Rashim Everett was convicted again of killing her in her apartment. His first conviction in 2013 was overturned 8 years later due to a mistake by the judge at the trial.
The jury had sent a letter to the judge that he failed to show to the defense or the prosecution or anyone else.
So the Queens prosecutors, led by the DA there, Melinda Katz, pursued the case. The perp had strangled Amanda and doused her body with bleach to try to destroy the evidence of the crime, but his DNA was found under her fingernails. The sentencing is November 11th. So Amanda's trans friends kept pressing this after all these years. By the way, in the first trial, the perpetrator's lawyer stood up and said, 28 years. I mean, we're talking about somebody who's not the high end of humanity here.
Oh my God.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that he
said. Wow. Well, and thank you to Melinda Katz, the DA, for saying we are not going to let this drop. We are going to prosecute this no matter how long it takes, under pressure from her friends and family.
So while most corporations are sticking with diversity, equity, and inclusion and the Human Rights Campaign, Toyota has joined the handful, I will say, I keep saying the growing number, the handful that have dumped them at the behest of a right-wing campaign.
Remember that logo, walk the other way.
Toyota claims they want to encourage an inclusive environment for employees, but this is not a step in the right direction. It's a step to the right.
Well, let's counter that with a much nicer story from San Diego. We come across these stories occasionally, and they're always kind of heartwarming. 2 male flamingos at the San Diego Safari Park have been given a little chick to raise, and they're happily...
They were given a practice fake egg first.
Yes, and then they substituted a real egg, and the egg hatched, and there are the 2 gay dad flamingos taking care of the chick.
And they're of age. They're each in their 40s, these flamingos.
Are they?
Yes.
How long do flamingos live?
I don't know, but I read that they're in their 40s.
Oh, I thought for sure you'd have that answer.
Earlier this year, they, wait a minute. Oh, they feed their chick crip milk from their digestive tracts.
We didn't need that detail.
I think it's interesting. It's part of parenting, isn't it?
I guess so, if that's what they're doing.
Got to feed them.
Yeah. All right. And now we want to acknowledge someone we lost recently in Ossining, New York. Donna Hennis, 79 years old, known as an urban shaman.
Yep.
Quite famous.
79 years old, survived by her partner, Dale Kaplan, woman, famous for conducting rituals that honored the seasons and the stars, such as a mass egg balancing ritual at the World Trade Center and bonfires for the winter solstice. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on to the next person we lost, which
she was with her partner since 1981, and a beloved figure in New York.
Yeah. And then Christopher Chone died at 63 of cancer. He was notorious as Madonna's brother. He was a very accomplished and successful dancer, and he wrote a book about Madonna and the difficulties in their relationship, which then made them estranged. They had been very, very close, but this came between them. But when he got sick with cancer, they got back together, and she was with him when he died.
Well, he also said that when she was interviewed by The Advocate, she said, I got a gay brother, and he had not publicly come out. And he was kind of pissed about that.
And that was a lot of why he was angry at her in the book.
He also found her husband, Guy Ritchie, from 2000 to 2008, homophobic.
Yeah.
Another brother, Anthony, predeceased them in 2023.
Well, their mom died at 30. Their stepmom died 2 weeks ago. Their brother, Anthony, died in 2023. Christopher leaves a husband, Ray Thacker, who was a British hairdresser and was also at his deathbed.
Right. Okay, we're done all right, so we go to international news.
Yes.
I like these stories. In Spain, a soccer team consisting entirely of transgender men has made its debut in a regional league. It's the first such team to achieve federated status in Europe. They're the Phoenix FC football club, I guess that is.
Mm-hmm.
Spain passed a trans rights bill last year. The governing body for the men's leagues in Catalan has let players of any gender play, regardless of their official identity. Now, this team did lose their first team 19-0, but this was a breakthrough, nonetheless.
And one of the team members said, we lost our first game 19-0, but the whole point here is we are a family. This is a safe space where you can be free and express yourself. And that's what's most important to them.
Right. And then let's go to Yorkshire, England. A gay couple bought a struggling soccer team, what they call football. And in short order, they held a Pride Day with a drag queen. So the couple their names are Kai Garcia and Ryan O'Neill. And they had a drag queen at the pregame entertainment, and they said it was well received. The town was just grateful to hold on to the team. It was going to go under.
Well, this is a pretty out-of-the-way town. This is not the middle of London or whatever.
We had to look up how to pronounce it. It's called Keighley.
Yeah.
But it's not spelled that way.
The town has embraced it with joy. And look, they're all willing to wear their uniforms with rainbow colors as opposed to the individuals here and there who refuse to play with any kind of...
Wait a minute. I said, this is...
rugby.
Yeah, this is rugby. I said, yeah, rugby football. Anyway, so now the stadium is covered in rainbow colors, Pride and Progress flags. It's also given LGBTQ people in the town a welcoming place to go with rugby. So there's some invective that they get with the usual online anonymous cowards. But 5 years in, trans activist India Willoughby is the club's patron.
Probably Marjorie Taylor Greene yelling at them online anonymously. The European Union Court of Human Justice has issued a ruling that all countries in the European Union must respect all documents, gender designations of everyone from every country. This started with Romania refusing to acknowledge a birth certificate change that was done in the UK by Romanian citizens. And the European Court has said, no, everybody has to respect these document changes.
That is very big news.
But in the country of Georgia, we told you last week that the president had refused to sign the new anti-LGBT bill, the Don't Say Gay bill, modeled after the Russian versions.
I mean, they threw everything but the kitchen sink into this bill. It's sweeping.
But as we suspected, the Speaker of the Parliament was empowered to and did sign the bill, and that makes it legal.
And this was all pushed, by the Orthodox Church there. It takes homophobia to a whole new level. Elections there are on October 26th. I imagine that it had something to do with that. So we'll see if that helps or hurts, because this vote was close.
Yeah.
It was not a blowout vote.
Oh, so you think maybe they could switch the majority in the parliament?
Might be nice.
It would definitely be nice.
Might be nice.
Now,
and of course, it's certainly going to hurt any chance they get into the European Union, which they are applying for.
Yeah. So you remember in the Olympics, there was controversy over a trans woman boxer. Actually, not a trans woman.
Right.
Someone charged with being a trans woman,
right,
who is not. And she had a powerful win over an Italian woman.
Imani Khalif, who defeated Angela Carini.
Yes.
And so, Angela after the match was like crying and
but she was crying. But then she said, it was fair and square, and
yes.
It was fine.
But the whole world, I'm talking about Elon Musk, J.K. Rowling, all these people, Trump, they all pile on. Trump was using this in his campaign and say, it was really a man. So
Lauren Boebert gets on the bandwagon for the poor, defeated Italian woman and starts raising money for her.
Well, she wanted to raise the equivalent of what the winner got at the Olympics, $196,000, but she raised $67,000 for her. And what happened?
The Italian woman refused the money. And so it's been returned to the donors, and Lauren Boebert, with any luck, has egg on her face.
The Italian woman had apologized, issued an apology to Khalif after getting over her anger.
Sure, at losing, but yeah.
But there's a survey internationally asking, how do you feel about having homosexual neighbors? I have some. They're very nice people. The question was asked by the Integrated Value Survey since 1993 in several countries. Back then, 40% of Americans said they didn't want homosexual neighbors, but that wasn't the worst result, up there with Brazil. But we are the worst now. About 13% of Americans objecting. Now, this does not include all these countries in Africa and the Middle East and everything like that. It's mostly Western Europe, Latin America, but everybody else is making progress. And now the best is Sweden, where it's like 3% object to having homosexual neighbors.
And we're tracking them down.
And exactly, we know who you are.
Well, speaking of surveys, I'm going to now segue into AIDS and health news. GLAAD, Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, is that still what they call it? I'm not sure. Anyway, they conducted a survey on HIV stigma, and they got in trouble because they put out this press release that said HIV stigma is decreasing.
Markedly.
Markedly. It's down from
89% to 85%,
which is
markedly
insane on its face. And the HIV community, organizations, people, whatever, got up in arms and said, what the hell are you talking about? First of all, this is just incorrect. Second of all, your survey stinks. And how dare you? And it turned out that they didn't survey people with HIV to say, how are you being treated these days? They just surveyed random people around the country to say, what do you think? Is HIV stigma as bad as it used to be? And people said, well, maybe not. And that just infuriated the HIV community, which was up in arms. The good news is that they then had a big meeting with GLAAD.
Online.
Yes. And
Sarah Kate Ellis didn't show up.
No, she did not.
She's the head of it.
People made some rather nasty remarks about that.
I won't call them nasty. I would have called them factual.
Cleaning her chandelier.
Oh, well.
But they had a good outcome from the meeting, and everyone is coming out of it a little hopeful. But it was really a shameful attempt at a survey.
Now, GLAAD said that they'd post the hour and 44-minute meeting online, and they didn't. So, but since they said they were going to, HIV columnist Mark King did, and we will link to it.
Yeah, because this is, they didn't ask, not only did they survey this random population, they did not ask a single HIV positive person what their experience of stigma is these days, as people are still being prosecuted and sent to jail for being sexually active with HIV, even if they're undetectable or using protection. And there's plenty of stigma all over the place. But they didn't ask for anyone's experience. They just asked this random opinion sample.
Okay. Tell us about
Nanette.
Nanette.
Nanette Kazaoka, and that's a Japanese name from her second husband, was a fantastic activist with ACT UP for many,
There she is
many,
on the left
many
there.
years. Yeah, holding up the sign, farmer, breed, kills. She was at a million demonstrations. She was the longtime treasurer of ACT UP, a job no one else wanted, but you could count on Nanette to take responsibility for things like that and follow through and just be on top of it. She was either 82 or 83 when she died. She was a senior occupational therapist at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital for many years.
32.
But she'd had a long career as a dancer before that. She'd had quite a rich life. You want to read her ACT UP Oral History Project interview, which we will also link to. Now, that's her on the cover of this book, Fag Hags, Divas, and Moms, The Legacy of Straight Women in the AIDS Community by Vicki Noe. And there's a chapter on Nanette in the book. She was one of the most popular people in ACT UP New York and a real hero. There she is with her daughters.
Well, she's somebody who stuck with the group.
Yeah,
long after it
most other people did.
Yes, she stuck with it.
Very even-tempered, just a nice person who you always enjoyed hanging around with. That's a big loss. Nanette was wonderful.
Okay. Two city supervisors in San Francisco are trying to make it easier for bathhouses to open again.
Yes.
Supervisor Raphael Mandelman, whose district includes the Castro, introduced legislation because it's under the control of the police department now, which drags its rear on issuing permits. It would also repeal requirements of keeping a register of patrons and prohibited locked doors on venues. Now, all this came about, of course, during the AIDS crisis, but times have changed, as you noted. So,
well, I see there's a new biography out on Randy Schultz, who wrote And the Band Played On and Conduct Unbecoming about the Military. And Randy was a prime mover of getting the bathhouses closed.
I hadn't realized he had worked in one back in the mid 70s, and he sort of had he sort of had a negative attitude towards a lot of the people who ran bathhouses in those days, that they were not exactly in the customer's interest.
Well, there was a huge debate about whether or not closing them would hurt the safe sex movement by taking away a place where people were educated and encouraged to
We could
use
spend a
safe
whole
sex.
show on this.
I
was involved in many of those controversies.
Yes. Nonetheless, the bathhouses were shut down in San Francisco.
I mean, we sued the state of New York because they wanted to close them down on the basis that anal and oral sex was taking place there, and they never mentioned vaginal sex as an issue in AIDS, which was terrible.
Or anal and oral sex among heterosexuals. Yeah. So now in 2024, 40 years later, they're finally trying to reopen them in San Francisco.
Of course, people being on PrEP and people who have HIV being on the drugs, they're not going to transmit HIV. But there are, of course, many other STIs to worry about, and people still need to be conscious about that.
Oh, everyone needs to be conscious, and everyone needs to be educated, and everyone needs to be offered means of protection. But people also need freedom. And
freedom.
It's
Kamala's
Beyonce says we need freedom. And if you drive people underground or away, you have less chance of reaching them with, I feel like it's 35 years ago and I'm doing the education again.
Now, what I just said about Kamala is going to be used in the next attack ad, that she's for freedom in bathhouses, but she didn't say that.
I don't think they're watching us.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Okay, entertainment news.
Rebel Wilson.
Rebel Wilson, who we told you last week married her girlfriend Ramona Gruma, is now in a lawsuit. She has her first directorial job of a movie. The movie's coming out, The Deb. I don't know what anyone's attitude is for that. But the producer sued her for defamation, defined as her bad behavior. She is countersuing for theft, bullying, and sexual misconduct by
I'm
the
going to fight for
producer.
all those who have silently suffered from producer Amanda Ghost's reprehensible actions.
It doesn't sound like a
And
honeymoon.
says that more will be revealed.
The film played at the Toronto Film Festival, and I assume will be available for us to look at soon.
Ann's pal, Cola Scola, creator and star of Broadway's Oh, Mary, where they play a deranged Mary Todd, but I repeat myself, has been named to the Time Magazine 100 Next list in the magazine. Cynthia Nixon, writing their entry, writes that Cole's jaw-dropping rendition of their unlikely chosen role is a lesson to thespians everywhere of what committing to a character really looks like.
Oh my God, he's so good. Or
Also-
they are so good.
Also being honored by God's Love We Deliver. On
Along
October
with Sarah
21st.
Jessica Parker and someone else major. The God's Love We Deliver fundraiser is going to be huge. Huge.
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about the MacArthur Genius Grants. We told you last week that Justin Vivian Bond had won a MacArthur grant, $800,000 over 5 years. Well deserved, long overdue for Vivian. But there were three other out winners of the MacArthur grants. Jericho Brown, poet, Southern, is known for writing about new forms, doing new forms of poetry, writes about masculinity, spirituality, family, sexuality, and race. Congratulations to Jericho. And then there's Shamel Pitts, self-described as queer, a Black multidisciplinary performance, part of Tribe, a Brooklyn arts collective, dancer. Congratulations to Shamel. And finally, Alice Wong, disability justice activist, writer, editor, creator of the Disability Visibility Project, which is a media platform that is very intersectional and dedicated to amplifying the voices of people in the disability community.
Geniuses all.
All a little more well-funded now.
Yes. So we went to see a screening of the epic transgender gangster musical,
Mexican drug lords.
Emilia Perez, it's set mostly in Mexico and starring four sensational actors who won a joint Best Actress award at Cannes. Trans Carla Sofia Gascon, Zoe Saldana, Selena Gomez, and Adriana Paz. Gascon plays a drug lord, as you said, who transitions with all that follows in many unexpected ways. It's about living your truth.
And they were all at the theater at the screening to talk as a panel afterwards. And she said that her toughest chore was learning to speak Mexican Spanish because she's from Spain.
Right. I've really never seen anything like this movie. It was wonderful to hear from these women about what a rich experience it was for them to make it. Now it's going to be in theaters and then it's coming to Netflix on November 13th.
Yeah, theaters on November 1st, Netflix November 13th. It won the jury award at Cannes. It won the Best Actress award for this group of actresses. And I loved it. I thought it was original and compelling.
I had no idea it was a musical.
Oh, yeah, it's a musical. They all sing.
And dance in the street.
It's funny.
Operatic.
It's scary. It's a little violence, but mostly just a thriller. And very, very original. Very original. Emilia Perez.
How often do I recommend a Broadway show? I can hardly recommend the revival of David Henry Hwang's Yellowface. It's insightful, it's thought-provoking, and it's very funny. It's about confronting racism in casting, particularly anti-Asian prejudice. It starts off with the fight over casting a white actor, Jonathan Pryce, to play the Eurasian lead in Miss Saigon in 1990. Hwang publicly objected, but this is not a polemic. That's Daniel Day Kim playing Hwang in the movie. He leads the cast, and it's not, there aren't pat answers in this. and it still manages to be funny, and it's a terrific evening in the theater.
And you saw another play, Hills of California.
Well, directed by Sam Mendes, by Jez Butterworth from England. I like his work. It was imported, apparently rewritten for Broadway, though the thick Blackpool, England accents were a challenge. It's the story of a stage mother who you don't see there, and these are her four girls who she's training to be like the Andrews sisters in the 1950s.
Nice.
A little late, but the 50s. And they run a seaside hotel there with no sea view. Anyway.
Is the music good?
Well, when they sing, they're great.
Yeah.
But it's not a musical. But then it's intermixed with the girls 20 years later while the mother is dying. And so it just keeps going back and forth. Our colleague, Marin Johns, described it as August Osage County meets Pinter's birthday party with a dash of little boys. I'd call it a cautionary tale about pushing your kids too far, but it is an excellent ensemble. Hardly a feel-good play, though.
Well, production that I think we can recommend without having seen it yet, because it's a revival, although a redone version, is Doric Wilson's Street Theater, which is being done by Tassos, the other side of silence. The 50-year production company. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary. Amazing that they have stayed in business and done such good work over the years.
This is a satire featuring cruisers, drag queens, undercover cops, lesbians, hippies, mobsters, and bystanders. Cast of 14, helmed by Mark Finley and Barry Childs.
Well, I saw it years ago when they did it at a bar. Maybe the Mine Chef.
I saw it at the center.
Well, they've done it many different times, and they did it at the Stonewall and at the center. But now, for the rest of its run, it's going to be at the Flea Theater, which is the home of Tassos.
20 Thomas Street.
A very lovely theater, a new theater, and that's October 17th through 22nd. Recommended Street Theater.
We will link to that. Out gay Tony winner Jonathan Groff is set to star in a new musical about Bobby Darin called Just in Time, opening this spring on Broadway.
And what's with this new James Dean
film? So James Dean, it's about his gay relationship with, there you see him, William Bast, who wrote a book called Surviving James Dean. Bass met Dean at 19 at the UCLA theater program. They became roommates, close friends, and then lovers. So Guy Guido, an out gay director, has written the script and will direct. Dean died in a car accident at 24 in 1955. Bass didn't die until he was 84. Guido is known for his documentary Madonna and the Breakfast Club about her early struggles in New York.
So that's coming sometime in the future?
And next year.
Okay. And we've talked about the documentary Will and Harper about Will Ferrell on a cross-country journey with his trans, very good friend Harper. And that's on Netflix, I think, now, and has been getting a lot of good talk. And they talked about how they released it deliberately before the election, so that it could counteract to some extent this whole anti-trans campaign that the Trump people are running. So that is nice to hear that they planned that. But not so nice to hear is that Billie Eilish has announced that she will no longer talk about her sexuality. She regrets ever saying anything about it. What a mess. And has taken down all her social media about any of this, and is really sorry she ever brought it up.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe 10 years from now.
Somebody who doesn't regret coming out, and he did it a long time ago, is out actor and Tony winner Andre DeShields, who recently starred as old Deuteronomy in Cats the Jellicle Ball, inspired by ballroom culture. He's been named the Grand Marshal of the 51st Halloween Parade in Greenwich Village this year. The parade is embracing a cat lady theme on the eve of the election.
Yes, some of the Stop the Coup people are going to dress up as cat ladies and carry signs about the Project 2025.
Andre says this is like winning a second Tony. So it's October 31st, Halloween, 7 o'clock. Lineup begins on 6th Avenue, south of Spring, and you all know where to go. I don't go out on Halloween, but have a great time.
Well, he'll have a long performance going up 6th Avenue as the star of the show. And we'll be back here next week with our show. Thank you for joining us. We'll see
With
you.
Marin Johns, yes, next week.
Yes, Mara next week.